The sun has not yet broken the line of the eastern hills. The valley holds its color, deep, bruised, neither night nor morning. Inside the farmhouse, the air is cold and carries the scent of damp earth and old wood. Thomas moves through the kitchen without hurry. He does not strike the flint with haste. He does not rush the water as it pours into the basin. He washes his face in the dark and stands for a moment at the window, looking out at the shapes of things: the fence line, the barn, the long invisible stretch of the field. His hands are a record of the years, scars and callus earned through seasons of sincere, relentless effort. No one who knew Thomas would question his willingness to work. He was the first in the fields and the last to leave them. He gave the land everything it asked for. And yet, there was something behind his eyes in the quiet hours, not failure, nothing as clear as that, more like the feeling of a door slightly ajar. The house, warm inside, and in him not quite entering it. He worked, but the days moved him. He responded to the weeds, reacted to the rain, bowed to whatever the morning demanded. The effort was sincere. The direction was not chosen. He had lived by a law he never spoke aloud. If he gave enough of his strength to the earth would eventually settle his soul. That sheer volume of labor would organize over time into something that felt like a life. It is a sincere belief. It is also incomplete. And he lights the small brass lantern. Its glow is modest, a circle of amber that barely reaches the corners of the room. He carries it to the heavy oak table by the window and sits. Outside, the fields are invisible, a vast, dark quiet. In previous years, he would already be out there, moving before he could see, fighting the land before the land was visible. Today, he simply sits. He looks at the rough parchment on the table, the boundary lines of the property, the slope of the eastern edge, the place where the lower pasture collects water after hard rain. He traces the lines slowly. He decides which ground will hold the rye and which will rest. He chooses where the drainage will cut before the season makes the choice for him. He is placing order upon the day before the day can place its demands upon him. The morning has not yet asked anything of Thomas. For the first time in a long while, neither has the work. The first week feels unnecessary. The old law is patient, and it whispers from the cold, from the stillness, from the part of him that knows how to measure worth in motion. It tells him that a man like him should be moving, straining, aching, that sitting at a table in the dark deciding the order of rows is a thing for men of leisure, not for men of soil. He stays, without confidence mostly. He stays because leaving feels like a small surrender, back to the life that moved him, rather than the life he was beginning quietly to move himself. And the parchment fills slowly. The rows take shape on paper before they exist in the earth. Structure chooses the future before effort arrives. The second month arrives with a biting frost. The curiosity of the early mornings has long faded. What remains is simpler and harder. Repetition without reward. The fields look the same. The stone walls haven't moved. There are mornings when the bed is warm and the kitchen is freezing, and the doubt arrives plainly. This changes nothing. And the old rhythm tries to return. It has its own gravity, that rhythm. It carries the comfort of not requiring a choice. If a person simply works as hard as they can for as long as they can, at least the effort is beyond question. But something is forming beneath the surface. He notices it first, not in the field, but in himself. When he steps into the actual morning now, he does not hesitate at the edge of the dirt, wondering where to begin. The internal map has already been drawn. That the work receives him differently when he arrives, already knowing what it is for. The lantern sits on the table each morning, unchanged. Its light does not reach further than it ever did, but Thomas sees further by it. The light is the same. The farmer is not. One morning, the shift arrives without announcement. He wakes before the bell, his mind already quiet and clear. The debate between the cold and the ritual simply does not occur. He rises, lights the lantern, sits at the table. The silence of the house feels like an ally. He understands, somewhere below words, that his previous years were a long series of responses to urgencies. The work had always been waiting for him, and he had always gone to meet it without deciding what it was building toward. Now, the urgencies have quieted, not because they disappeared, but because they were anticipated in the dark. He is no longer mending fences in a panic. He is reinforcing them before they lean. But the morning is no longer an act of will. It has become simply where his day begins. The rows in the southern field begin to reflect what has changed inside. They are not merely present, they are straight. They carry a clarity that draws the eye, not the straightness of exceptional effort, but the straightness of consistent intention. Of a man who planned before he planted. Of someone for whom the field is not a place where effort disappears into soil, but a place where structure becomes visible over time. Thomas notices it first himself. He says nothing. There is nothing to say. One afternoon, Elias, who has farmed the adjacent ridge for 40 years, stops his cart by the stone wall. He looks at the field for a long moment, then at Thomas. "The lines are true this year," Elias says, his voice low. "I haven't seen them run that straight since your father's time. How are you finding the hours for it?" Thomas wipes the sweat from his brow. But the words do not inflate him. They settle somewhere quieter than pride. "I decided where they would go before I started digging," he says. Elias nods slowly. He recognizes something in the younger man's posture, not pride, not performance, something steadier than either. He tips his hat and moves on. The reward is quiet. It is enough. The harvest comes. It is not a remarkable season by the valley's measure. No story will be told of it at winter tables. It is simply better, more organized, less wasteful, more manageable. There is less frantic repair. There is less loss to what was not anticipated. Thomas finds himself back at the table as the autumn air turns thin. The sun is once again late to the sky. He lights the lantern. He is not a different man in the ways people imagine transformation. He does not move differently. He does not carry himself as though changed. He is quieter in some ways than before, less in motion, strangely, even though the work remains the same. Well, what has changed is prior to all of that. Each morning, before the world requires anything from him, he has already answered the most important question the day will ask. Not how hard will I work. He had always answered that one without hesitation, the harder question, the one he had carried unanswered into his days for years. Where are the rows supposed to go? The fields are dormant now, tucked under Tishian gray frost, but they do not feel empty. They feel prepared. When Thomas sits in the small amber circle of the lantern's light, the morning is still. The work will come when it comes. He is no longer a man waiting for effort to organize into a life. He is a man who has learned to decide before the day decides for him. And in that small, repeated act, the life has slowly become his own. The lantern lights the table. The parchment waits. Outside, the field holds its rows in the dark, straight and still, already knowing the direction of the coming season. He already knows it too.